All right, so in this lesson, we are going to do, we're going to learn about something that you could have possibly learned about before. So we are going to start graphing linear equations, and you're going to find those linear equations in two forms. The first one that we are going to go over is the slope-intercept form. So here we have the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. We put a little note here that slope could also be thought of as rise over run. And your y-intercept is the point in the graph that crosses the y-axis. So these two things are important. We are going to be identifying the slope and the y-intercept in our examples. So if you want at this point, you can pause the video and take some notes down with this. All right, so example number 1. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use this equation to identify my slope and my y-intercept. So like I said earlier, the slope is your m, or like the number right in front of the x variable. So in this case, my slope would be positive 2. So my slope is 2. All right, and then my y-intercept is this number that's all by itself. In this case is negative 2. So the way that you can actually write your y-intercept is going to be 0, negative 2. And we're going to see why we're writing it in a coordinate. Okay, so now to graph this equation, when we are in slope-intercept form, we're going to create a table of values. So in your task for today, you're also going to be doing this. You're going to do a table of values. And to get those values, you're going to use the graphing calculator. That's why on the previous lesson, we went over the different graphing calculators that you can use. The one that I'm going to use is the one that was introduced for the iPad or the iPhone. I'm going to go to that now. And I'm going to say skip for now, which is this one here. It has a very similar view if you're doing the iPhone version. And if you are using Chrome, the buttons are very, very similar. So you can follow along as well. All right, so we're doing this equation here. So what we're going to do is we are going to plug in this part into our y equals button. So that 2x minus 2, we're going to plug into our y equals button. My y equals button is, this one right here. So in the top left corner, the one that says y equals, I wish I had a pointer. I'm going to use this as my pointer. This right here, that's my y equals button. So when I press on that, it takes me to this screen that you see up here. Once you are here, you can type in that equation. So the equation was 2x. So notice to get my x, it was this button right here, the one that has x, comma t, comma symbol, comma n, 2x minus 2. So all I did was I typed this equation into my first line in the y equals. And then if you want to take a look at what the graph looks like, you can just click on graph, and that gives you a view of the actual graph. But since you want the actual table of values, you're going to click on second, which is that blue button that now turned red. So I'm going to click it again. So that blue button, the second, and then click graph. And that takes you to my values. So my table of values. So you can scroll up and down to find some values in there. So the values that we're going to choose are pretty much, I want to get the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is the value which x is 0 and the one that goes along with it. So in this case, it's 0, negative 2. So that's going to be one value that I am going to choose. So I'm going to put right here 0, negative 2. My coordinate is 0, that's a weird 0, 0, negative 2. Okay, now I'm just gonna choose some negative values and some positive values. I'm not gonna go too far off, so I'm just gonna choose -2, -6, and -3, -8. So I'm gonna choose -3. I think that was, so we look up here. I think it was, okay, so -3, -8. That means my coordinate is -3, comma, -8. And I'm also gonna choose -2, -6. So -2, -6. And my coordinate is gonna be -2, comma, -6. All right, and then I'm gonna choose some positive values. So after 0, so some positive values here. I'm gonna choose 3, comma, 4. So that means right here. And I want to choose 5, comma, 8. Okay. So these are the points that I am going to plot into my graph. All right. Make sure I got enough. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm good. All right. So, what could help you in doing this step is numbering our axes. So I'm gonna do that. It's just a way to make sure that you have your accurate values in here, and I'm gonna go, my scale is gonna be to go by ones. So on this side, and I'm gonna erase this later. So on this side, we have positive x values. So I'm gonna write, we start right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So those were positive values for my x. And then over here we have negative values for my x. So again, I'm gonna write it -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. All right. And then this point right here in the middle, that is my origin, and that's 0. Okay, now I'm gonna take care of my y-axis. So on this side, we have positive values. So I'm gonna write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then down here, we have our negative values. So I'm gonna start with -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. Oops. All right, so now I am ready to plot my points from here. So I'm gonna start with -3, -8. So I'm gonna go to my x-axis. So I will start with my x, my first number is my x, -3, and I'm gonna go down 8 because it's -8. So from here I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's right here. All right, then I'm gonna go -2, -6. So again, on my x-axis, I'm gonna go to -2, and since it's -6, I'm gonna go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's right here. All right, my next value is 0, -2. on my x-axis, I'm going to go to 0. And then since it's -2, I'm going to go down to 1, 2. Okay. Then I'm going to go my next value, 3, 4. Again, first number is my x, so my x-axis, I'm going to go to 3. And since it's +4, I'm going to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And now we have the last one that I chose, 5, 8. So on the x-axis, I'm going to go to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go up 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so I have all the points that I chose. And now I'm going to draw a line to connect those points. All right. Now I'm going to put arrows at the ends of my lines because this isn't a real world problem. This is just a line, and a line extends forever and ever, right? So I'm just going to put my arrows at the end to signify that. So this is how we graph this equation here. We get the values from our calculator. Remember, one more time is you click on the y equals button up there, type in your equation, then second graph, and that gives you your table of values. So at this point, you can pause the video, take some notes down, and then I'm going to move on to one more example. All right, so this is example number 2. And again, we are going to plug this in this part right here, into our calculator. Oh, before we do that, let me go up to the top. This idea of slope and y-intercept. So like we said, slope is rise over run. So if we pick these 2 points, we should be going up 2 and over 1. And that shows my slope. The y-intercept is 0, -2. And I'm just going to circle that in a different color. So 0, -2. So that's this right here. That's my y-intercept. And as you notice, is where this line crosses the y-axis. So you want to take a note of that as well. Okay, so now let me go to example 2. Let's just identify our slope based on the equation. So our slope here is 1 over 4. And my y-intercept is -3, but we're going to write it as a coordinate point. So we're going to say 0, -3. Where we have this -3 right here. Okay, so now we're going to use our graphing calculator to get our points. So we're going to type this into our graphic calculator. We're going to go to y equals. We can use the clear button, which is down here. And to get that fraction, I always use parentheses with fractions. It just gives me some peace of mind. So I'm going to use my parentheses, which is right here. So parentheses 1 over 4, close your parentheses. So this up here is what I use to do my over. X -3. And then I'm gonna go to second graph, and here are my values, right? All right, again, I'm gonna always choose my y-intercept, which is the value that has 0 as an x. So in this case, it's 0, -3. So I'm gonna put that right in the middle because I'm gonna choose some negative x values and some positive x values. But this is my y-intercept. All right, so now I'm gonna choose some values in the negatives. For this, if you notice, it has some decimals, right? It has some values that give me a decimal. I don't want to choose those because then it's going to be a little hard to like estimate where those decimals are going to land, since we're in the graph, we're going by ones. So I'm just going to choose my whole numbers. So one of my whole numbers is -4, -4. All right, so that's another one that I'll choose. And I'm also going to choose -8, -5. Okay, now let me choose some positive numbers, some positive x values. Again, I don't want any decimals, so I'm going to choose 4, -2. And 8, -1. Okay, and now I have all the points that I want in my graph. I'm gonna quickly put my numbers in here, my graph. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. Okay, so this point, I'm just gonna plot each one of my points. So I'm gonna go -8, -5. So I'm at -8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got, okay, -4, -4. 0, -3. 4, -2. 8, -1. And I'm just gonna make a line that goes through all those points. That's not the right line. Okay, and my arrows at the end. So here we have our second example. Now when you're using Kami, it might be a little difficult to type in those numbers in here. You might want to use the draw tool to do that, but if you can't type in those numbers, you can also use a text box to type in those numbers. But you can also write them in. I think it's very helpful to have those numbers in there. And now you can take some notes down and then head over to Google Classroom to finish your example using Kami.